discussion that's brought to you by the 100 Black Men of South Metro Atlanta and the Emerging 100 of South Metro Atlanta. I'm your moderator, Will Ayers, and I'm also privileged to be a member of the 100 Black Men of South Metro Atlanta chapter. I'm super excited about tonight's discussion. We have city leaders from across the Atlanta metro area that are creating meaningful change in their community day to day. And today's discussion is going to be split up into three parts, which are going to identify problems, ongoing issues and problems going on in Black communities now as it pertains to our youth and the criminal justice system. We're going to take at some solutions in order to solve some of these issues. And we're also going to gather together to create next steps so everyone can have tangible assets and directions to implement some of these solutions in order to create a meaningful impact in their communities across Atlanta. Once again, my name is Will Ayers. I'm going to bring all of my esteemed panelists to the screen before we get started. For all of our guests in our audience that are currently watching this live stream, feel free to add questions to our chat. All of our panelists are going to answer those questions following our discussion. So without further ado, I'd like to bring all of our participating panelists up to the stage.
Good evening. I'm Tasha Mosley, District Attorney of Clayton County.
Good evening. My name is Dwayne Brown. I am a Deputy Assistant Solicitor General with the Fulton County Solicitor General's Office.
Good evening. My name is Philip Jackson. I'm an Associate Judge in the Fulton County Juvenile Court.
Next up is Chief Ramos. I think she may be having some technical issues. I'm going to pass it over to Dr. Pitts.
Good evening. My name is Dr. Pamela Pitts. I am the principal of Morrow High School in Clayton County. Next up, we have Mr. Omar Howard.
How you doing? My name is Omar Howard. I'm founder of Freedom is a Choice Incorporated mentoring group here in DeKalb County.
And next up, we have Mr. Dwayne.
Good evening. My name is Rafiq. I'm president of the 100 Black Men of South Metro Atlanta Incorporated.
Thank you, everyone, for being here this afternoon. I'm super excited about this discussion. I'm going to jump right into our questions for the night. This is a question for all of our panelists. What inspired you to take the career route that you currently have, and how has the criminal justice system impacted you personally or professionally throughout your life? We can start off with D.A. Mosley with that answer.
Thank you. Actually, probably about 20-something years ago, I just decided to become a prosecutor because I didn't see a lot of African-American women and or men being prosecutors, but the defendants looked like me, were my color. And my thought was, if I can get in there and try to make a change within the system and actually help keep other people of color from coming in. So that was my main motivation. And that has been my motivation since 1998, since I entered prosecution, is to educate people of color on the judicial system and try to the best of my ability to make it an even playing field for those individuals coming in when I see them, and making sure that my recommendations are one that are rehabilitative and not so much punishment where it destroys somebody's life.
Feel free to.
All right, my name is Omar Howard. As I told you, I'm the founder of Freedom is Choice Incorporated Mentoring Group. I am a returning citizen. I actually did 15 years of prison. While I was in prison, I decided to turn my life around because I've seen, as most of us seen, we've seen so many young African American males coming into the judicial system. But one thing in particular, when they changed some of the laws and started to send young adults to the male facilities and charge them as adults, I decided, that I wanted to be a mentor. And when I got released in 2007, shortly after I got out, I started my own mentoring group. While in the process of that, I was invited to come back inside as a chaplain at the Department of Corrections. So I've been working with adults and I've been working with juveniles, but one of my main goals or target was to try to detour young men and young women from taking the same route that I did, and allowing themselves to come inside the judicial system, because we all know most of our young men, especially African Americans, we don't necessarily have the funding to actually have be able to fight our cases and anything like that. And sometimes we get railroaded for minor charges, or not saying that we're condoning what we do, but we don't have sometimes in the courses when we don't get a fair chance or a fair shot at a fair sentencing. And so, but other than that, I want to encourage my kids not to even get into the system, but take a different route: school, military, trade school, entrepreneurship. And so that's what I've been doing now, before I got out of prison and since I've been out. And so that's what inspired me, my own life, and watching other young men and women make bad decisions. So that's what I'm doing now, is just trying to motivate other young adults to do different their life. That's what the name of my organization is called, Freedom is a Choice. It's geared toward encouraging our youth to choose freedom over incarceration.
I got in pretty much the same way as D.A. Mosley did. I'm a little bit older than most of the people on the panel. When I started off in law, there was very little diversity. Everybody wanted to be public defenders, but I figured I could do better help by being on the prosecution end, from the standpoint that most victims are African Americans, and from the standpoint of making sure the victims are treated fairly, because a lot of times they weren't, and being able to communicate with them. But the other part is what Coach Howard and Ms. Mosley said, but just being fair. By being on the inside, it's one thing for somebody to do something wrong, but you want them to be treated fairly. And our system isn't perfect, but the more diverse we are and the more assertive we are, we just need to improve to make it better.
Like lots of others on the panel, I was inspired to get involved in the criminal justice system. Growing up, I always wanted to be a civil rights attorney, and seeing some injustices. I'm from Savannah, Georgia. I was kind of steered towards wanting to do things that I felt would right wrongs. And so I was, knew that I wanted to be a civil rights attorney in law school. After law school and actually doing law school, I got a chance to do an internship at a DA's office, and seeing the work prosecutors did, seeing the power prosecutors had in the criminal justice system, seeing how we could charge cases, seeing how we can make decisions on which cases we should bring, which case we shouldn't bring, and making sure that people weren't processed through the system without trying to look at them as a whole was something that kind of resonated with me and I felt passionate about. I'm from Savannah, Georgia. I actually had a lot of family members involved in the criminal justice system, brothers, cousins, and seeing their cases and what happened with them also inspired me to stay involved in the criminal justice system.
Dr. Pitts?
I became an educator because I grew up around strong women who taught me that knowledge was power. I always believed that through education, we could create opportunities for children, especially children of color, that they could be anything they wanted to be, do anything they wanted to do. And then it could assist our kids in being knowledgeable, in making sound and strong decisions. So I came into education so that I could be powerful.
And tossing it over to Chief Ramos. I think she's on mute. Can you hear us? Your microphone is still on mute, I believe. There it goes.
Okay, so hi, my name is Martha Ramos, and I'm the Chief of Police of the DeKalb County Police Department. And growing up, I grew up in an area where most of the people were not doing the right thing. And some of those people were police officers. So I always wanted to be the one to make a difference and to be there for those that didn't have anyone else. So I went into law enforcement with the idea that I could make a difference. And so whether it's big or small, if it's only one person or 5 people, I think that makes a difference. So that's why I do what I do.
I love that. I love that. I could jump right into the questions, and I'm going to start off with Chief Ramos, since you were the last person that spoke. You are the first woman to serve as chief of DeKalb County, which is a pretty big deal. What types of inequities or circumstances are you seeing on the ground as it pertains to our youth that are dealing with issues around criminal justice?
I think what I see more is just the fact that people don't even realize that it exists. So, we're all under the belief that everybody has opportunity and people just don't want to take advantage of it. But I do see that some of our youth just don't have the opportunities that others do, where some people may take certain things for granted, such as them now actually being in school and needing computers and needing Wi-Fi, and knowing that there are some kids out there that just don't have Wi-Fi. The families can't afford Wi-Fi. They have to go stand by a business just to get it. So I don't think that most people realize the fact that some of our youth don't have the opportunities and the things that most of us do take for granted that makes life a little additionally difficult for them.
Now, Dr. Pitts, you're at the school level within the school system. Can you just touch on some of those inequalities that you see as well from your perspective?
I agree with Chief Ramos that a lot of our students in the county at first, especially in light of the pandemic, did not have access to the internet, also did not have access to laptop computers. We have since, through our district and through 100 Black Men, been able to give all of our students laptops, as well as access to the internet through hotspots. But we also have inequalities with housing for some of our students. We have a transient population of students here in this district. We do have a lot of students who are homeless, So sometimes we forget that shelter is something that is a definite inequality for our kids.
Now, Coach Omar Howard, Coach Howard, just talk about some of the things that you went through that caused you to become entangled in the criminal justice system, because I'm pretty sure that you faced or experienced some of these inequalities as well. Just kind of take us through some of the things that you experienced that kind of caused you to go down the wrong path.
Watching my peers indulging, selling drugs and stuff like that. And of course, my mom, I mean, she could afford to take care as far as the rent, put food on the table. But when you have certain peer pressure on you, like, I'm kind of popular in my school or whatever, but I couldn't afford to have the designer clothes and things that I thought was significant and what I thought makes you a person. And I seen some of my peers and stuff selling drugs, stuff like that, and I got entertained by it. And so I started, trying to sell drugs. But then one thing led to another. I started selling drugs, I started robbing, I started breaking the house, started breaking the cars, dropped out of school, lost, didn't have no hope, started being very disrespectful to my family, being disrespectful to authority. Ended up having a son when I was 17 years old. I was very depressed. Didn't know how to wiggle out of a situation that I allowed myself to be put in. And so that ended up me, once I turned 18, and actually right there between 17 and 18, I actually tried to actually get out the streets, go back to school, because I feel like I wanted to be the best example for my son. But with not having a father figure in my life, and I'm the only child, and most of my peers around me, or the peers that I chose to gravitate to, I mean, they didn't encourage me necessarily to stay in school. It was more about getting money, and that's the route I took. And then I found myself locked up when I was 18 years old, charged with 13 major felons, from manslaughter all the way down to burglary and carrying a concealed weapon. So those are the things that I entangle myself in. But just not having a mentor, not having a role model that I could really look up to, or what I tell kids is that you have to actually, not the fact that mentors are not there or people in school who could be positive role models. You have to want to be around those type of people. You have to want to be a part of those type of circles. I thought being in the streets and doing all the wild stuff was the fun part of life, until I found myself incarcerated, and I realized I should have been a square. I should have been lame, instead of trying to be this popular dude and want to be this street dude. And so that's what got me into that system. But like I said, after I got locked up that time, even though I didn't realize how long I was going to do and didn't know when I was going to get out, I still know that I want to do something different with my life. And so that's why I decided, even while I was incarcerated, that I want to change, and I want to do something different in my life, and then do something different while I was in the prison system. So even everything that I'm doing today, I was actually doing while I was in prison, as far as mentoring and speaking to schools when they brought schools to the prison, because I didn't want to see other young men and women follow this course and follow this path. Because even with the gang stuff going on in our times now, like, a lot of kids are not getting into because they're necessarily being bullied in. A lot of people get in certain situations because it's popular to be right now. And the way media and the way a lot of our peers glorify certain things, our kids think it's okay to do certain things. And they get in it, and they don't realize that when you step over certain boundaries and lines, that you're getting yourself into some very dangerous playing fields. And so I just want to help, like I said earlier, I want to help detour that and hopefully help young men to, especially my young African American males, to find purpose in their life and find some hope. We have so much going on in our community that we don't pay attention to, because I think a lot of people, just this is my house. As long as it's not happening in my house, and I don't want to be bothered with it. But until it knocks on their door, and then they realize that it's not just an individual thing, but it's a community thing that we have to deal with. And so that's the reason why I do what I do. That's why I collaborate with many organizations, agencies, from U.S. Attorney's Office down here to DeKalb County, where I stay at. So hopefully to do something different. But those are the things that I chose to do. I seen the money. money, was something I wanted, but it didn't bring happiness. I wanted a certain clout that I was going to be hard and that I could be this shooter or whatever I was trying to be at that time. And I didn't realize that it came with a certain consequence, the consequence that I didn't want to pay. But I had to pay 15 years of my life for it. So those are the things that I got involved in.
It's a powerful story, powerful story. D.A. Mosley, can you just talk about some of the things that you see from your perspective? Because many times conversations like this, we don't get an opportunity to talk to professionals that are on the other side. Can you talk about some of the inequalities that you see from your perspective as well?
I think the biggest inequality I see is what Dr. Pitts and Chief Ramos were talking about. It's a lot of wraparound services when you think about it. It is the access to the internet, good healthcare, good education. Our teachers are so busy trying to provide the basics that a lot of times they don't get to teach. These babies are coming in hungry. And so how can a child learn when they're hungry? And so they're taking time out to make sure the child is fed and the child is clothed. So it's the wraparound services where I'm seeing that we are really deficient in. They need healthcare. They need mental health care because they're going through things that I would never imagine as a 50-year-old woman sitting there going through some of the traumatic incidences and things that they're seeing. They need those type of care. And the state and the federal government over the years we have just cut things. We've moved everything from the state to the local government. Well, if your local government cannot afford to fill in the gap when the states and the feds say they're not going to fund it anymore, it goes unfunded. And so it's those wraparound services that I think our children are missing. And then also the job opportunities, because a lot of the jobs are leaving the counties. And so what we might have taken as a child, the McDonald's, the Burger Kings, Chick-fil-A wasn't around that I could, the best of my knowledge, when I was in high school. But those type of jobs where you think of young kids going in and getting their first job and making some money to have money in their pockets. When the recession hit, you had adults going in and taking over those jobs, just trying to make ends meet, and they weren't hiring kids. Adults were trying to do what they needed to do just to make ends meet and keep things above board. And so there was nothing left for the kids. There are no YMCAs, those type of programs for these kids to go to, boys and girls clubs, for them to go to have some place to go instead of being on the street or being at home while their parents are trying to work. Those type of community programs are missing for our community, and it's just been cut away. It seems like every year something else is cut away, and we're going without a lot, and we're expected to do more with little. And it's just I think we came to our breaking point years ago where what we're doing is not working. Hadn't been working for a long time. And so we have to get back, in my opinion, to the basics, which means we're going to have to fund some things. Our tax-paying dollars, I'm just like every other red-blooded American. I don't get happy when I see Uncle Sam and how much he's taking out of my check, but I would prefer that whatever he's taking is going to go to my community and help my community become stronger and building a better foundation versus my money being sent overseas, doing other things. We're helping everybody else but our people. And we need to get back to basics. I got to take care of home. I don't know how we take care of home and the world at the same time, but we've got to take care of home a little bit better than what we have for the past few decades.
That's true. That's true. This is a question for Attorney Jackson, Judge Jackson. and Attorney Brown. Once again, as I mentioned earlier, we don't necessarily get a chance or get an opportunity to speak with attorneys or judges who are playing a pivotal role in some of these sentences or programs that our youth are being put in. Just share some of the experiences that you have as far as seeing some of those inequalities that some of our panelists previously mentioned, and what's your thought process as it pertains to like how you deal with these kids that may be coming from unfortunate circumstances?
Sure, I'll begin. And it's funny. I can piggyback off a lot of what other panelists said, but what I see a lot on files that come across my desk, and it's been years I've seen this, and it's not getting any better, are mental health issues. We are seeing issues with people not being able to receive treatment for drugs and drug dependency. And if we aren't addressing those issues linger. The criminal justice system for a long time was inadequate in addressing underlying mental health issues, not properly funding these courts, like a mental health court, giving people chances to address their underlying conditions, making sure they have counselors, making sure that when they have a criminal case, that they aren't just getting probation or sending them away, but we are trying to figure out what's going on with that person and getting them help and counseling, drugs as well. So those are some of the things I'm seeing. You know, we're seeing a lot of individuals who don't have resources, you know, such as they don't have things filling their time. Who's surrounding them? Who's giving them advice? It seems a lot of individuals are in situations where, you know, they are falling behind friends and they don't have anything else, you know, positive. They don't have enough positive role models. You know, we as a society are not doing a good enough job reaching back to them. So what they see, that's what they emulate. They see, you know, kids their age, they see entertainers on TV, and we're not doing a good enough job reaching back out and speaking to them and engaging them where they are. Also, piggybacking on what D.A. Mosley said, I recall in 2009 when former Mayor Kasim Reed was running, and he was talking a lot about Centers of Hope and rec centers, and that was a great idea. You know, I know it started, we had a lot more rec centers, and there were a lot of centers for individuals to fill their time, to occupy their time, positive places for them to be around people who cared about them. You know, in funding these programs are what's going to help change the trajectory of a lot of our young African-American men and women.
From my standpoint, I don't know if I use the word about inequalities. I think a lot of times people get caught up in the system, and based upon your panel, I think everybody's trying to do the right thing. There's systemic problems in our society, and there's two ways we can try to deal with it, long-term and short-term. But the main thing we need to do is be honest and face them. Mental health issues are a problem. Education is a problem. And those are long-term fixes that we can do by participating on these panels and educating the community and educating ourselves. I think we're better able to make informed decisions. But from my standpoint as a judge, I have to try to treat everybody the same that comes before me. And I try to treat them fairly, as opposed to just looking at a number. And when you look at individuals, what you see sometimes is, especially from a juvenile court standpoint, is you try to put in services. You try to recommend that they get mental health treatment. You try to recommend that they get substance abuse treatment. You refer them to agencies. Part of the problem that we have, though, is that we've kind of touched around the side. We don't have enough money in social services to provide services. You know, there's a lot of money. They always talk about the how much it costs to lock somebody up as opposed to how much it costs to educate them, or how much it costs for a police officer as opposed to how much it costs for a social worker or a psychologist. So I think the main thing is that what everybody in this panel is trying to do is stay active and educate and try to fix the problems that are out there, because those problems are there, and try to educate people and try to protect people also, because it doesn't do any good if somebody comes before you and you don't do anything. They're going to go out and the same thing is just going to happen over and over again. So we have to try to bring change and to try to help the system work right the best it can.
This is a follow-up question for you, Judge Jackson. What are some of the more common cases that you see as it pertains to either misdemeanors or serious charges in the juvenile court system?
Well, a lot of the misdemeanors, we try to send them to diversion. They don't come before a judge, especially the first time up. And that'll be something like simple battery, theft by taking, shoplifting. But the more serious crimes, and I'm thinking that I see in juvenile court, and it's probably affecting the other courts also, is theft by taking cell phones. Cell phones cost now, what, $600 or $700? And most kids have cell phones. And these kids, they will take other kids' cell phones, take adult cell phones or computers. People lose their contacts, their pictures. The other thing that we have is theft by taking vehicles. These kids aren't old enough to get driver's license, but they're stealing cars. And if you live in Atlanta, people need their cars that are trying to get to work and take care of their kids. And kids just get these cars and they don't think about it. And they don't think about the consequences when they steal somebody's car. And most of the time they wreck them. And I'm sure the chief and the DA and the solicitor can probably say that. But that's what we need to try to put in services to try to help them.
Just to follow up to that, this is a question for all of the rest of our panelists. And we could start off with Dr. Pitts. Being a leader of a school, just talk about some of the issues that you see as it pertains to either our youth committing crimes or getting in fights at school. Just talk about some of the more common things that you're seeing from your perspective.
Prior to the pandemic, because as you know, in light of the pandemic, we have not been in school face-to-face with our students. But just as the judge alluded to earlier, we're seeing a lot of incidences with cell phones. First and foremost, our young adults, our students are very social. Being on social media is very important to them. If you try to do anything related to a cell phone, it's almost like they lose their mind. Right now, we're seeing a lot of bullying incidences. A lot of the bullying now has become cyberbullying. We're also seeing a little bit of gang activity, theft by taking, a lot of theft by taking with electronic devices. But another step further with the electronic devices, a lot of our students are being very cunning, and they're stealing now via their cell phones. They're also doing a little bit of scamming, if you will, with their cell phones, creating rooms for people to give funds. So they're doing things like that. I do also want to address, just if I can, in regards to the mental health. We're seeing that on the school level as well. And what the schools have been doing is incorporating social emotional learning for our students. And we've seen great success. Our students, especially in light of the pandemic, have been reaching out to try to communicate their feelings. And I do agree that we need to pour more resources into mental health, but the schools are starting to go deeper with mental health by doing social emotional learning activities. I know in Clayton County, the first 10 minutes of every class, we're doing social emotional learning activities. So as far as the discipline, I would definitely say the top one is bullying, cyberbullying, and theft.
This is a question for Chief Ramos. What are some of the things your department and your team is doing to de-escalate some of these situations, specifically as it pertains to car theft in DeKalb County or across the Atlanta area?
Yeah, so what we're trying to do is we're not only just trying to work with the children, we're trying to work with the parents. Sometimes the parents are not even aware of what the children are doing. They're taking the vehicles or entering into the autos just simply for fun or for joy rides and not doing it for financial gain. So just trying to work with the families, trying to make sure that they're aware of what their children are doing, trying to offer resources. A lot of times it's an underlying problem, not that the child just wants to misbehave. It could be that the parent is working. It could be that the parent just doesn't know. It could just be that the child is trying to help the parent with some money. So we are trying to identify those underlying resources that we can offer to see if maybe we can help the family. And then if you help the family, maybe the family can help the child.
Just to follow up on that, are there any initiatives that you are implementing to kind of build up that rapport with parents or the kids or the community just in general, to make them trust the police or believe in the police a little more, so it's more so of a collaborative effort to improve the community and keep kids out of trouble?
Yeah, one of the things that we're actually doing, and it's not new, so we're really engaging with our PAL unit, and we created a community policing unit where we're going out and we're dealing with the citizens one-on-one. So it's a unit that's focus is just interacting with the public, so that way they have the time and the luxury of dealing with whatever the issues are. They're working with identifying resources throughout the county. So rather than just talking about the problems, they're able to offer some resources and direct the family. Our PAL unit right now actually started a life skill unit. So rather than just saying we're doing enforcement, we're actually trying to touch them in a different way. So we have a life skill unit where we have chosen some children, or they have chosen us. It works both ways. And we're doing a life skill 8 weeks. So it's a bi-week monthly program where they come in. They actually go out to Piedmont College that partnered up with us and allow us to use their facilities. And we teach them financial literacy. We teach them about interview skills. We had a clothes drive where we gave them clothing, so they have to dress a certain way to participate. And we've actually worked at local businesses and have gotten these 10 children out of the 10 that we have in the program now. 9 have been employed because of the police department and because of this life skill unit. So we are trying to do something outside of enforcement and actually connecting with people so that they understand that we want to be part of the problem, part of the solution, not just the problem. And one of our success stories that I feel is successful is one of those children we actually encountered on the corner selling water. We all know we've had that problem in DeKalb County and Atlanta, and we actually make it a point to not only deal with the children, we go to their homes and tell the family. A lot of times the family don't know the children are out there selling water. They don't know that it's illegal. And we were able to get one of the children into our program, and he's now employed. So obviously he chose to participate because we can't make you participate, but we are out there trying to touch the community, trying to offer whatever resources we can with our limited ability, just to show them that we're here to do more than just take you to jail.
I love that. I love that. This is a question for Coach Howard. Can you talk about your program a little bit more and some of the things that you're doing in the community to kind of steer the youth in the right direction?
About 9 years ago, because I realized after going through the Big Brother Big Sister program when I was in Alabama, most of our young men that are find themselves either not a positive role model or not a father figure or a brother, but find themselves getting into the judicial system. They need to see someone that look like them, who maybe have went through that, but now have changed their life. And so what I started doing 8-9 years ago is like a couple times through the month, I pick them up on the weekend. I take them out to eat, take them to the movie, take them to football games, basketball games, just trying to create a positive space and a safe space for them to have someone around them that will be positive, but understand what's going on out here. Because I'm just a realist. When I talk to kids, I have an expectation for them. I believe in them. I constantly tell them how much I love them. I constantly share the consequence of their choices. With some certain funding I get from private donors. Like I said, I do different things. I've even had the opportunity to take one of my young men who went through the judicial system to Guatemala with me. He went to Guatemala when we did built a house, and it impacted his life. We got several young men that I work with that I met through PALS. I met through the CAB Juvenile Court, Fulton Juvenile Court. I actually got a young man now that just got out because we was working with Department of Juvenile Justice that we're actually going to be working with, who's over in Clayton County at the time. And what we try to do is just build a close relationship with these young adults so they will have someone. Because sometimes, I've been an adult. I've been a young man, and I didn't want to talk to my mom. I didn't want to talk to dad. I didn't want to talk to no teacher, pastor, police officer. I don't want to talk to nobody. But having someone who's been down that same path or who has been through certain situations, it's easier for our young adults to relate to them, conversate with them. And my goal is hopefully is to have my own facility where I can have, be more institutional with what I'm doing for as a weekly program, because we have a lot more violent young men, violent young ladies, and even with me, working with kids periodically throughout the month, our kids need consistency. That's what I've learned over the years, that they had to have consistent positive impact in their lives so they can believe that someone actually cares. And I listened to what Chief Ramos said when the young man, was able to actually come off the street. Now he has employment. That's what gives them hope, that because they hear it so much, people talk positive to them, say they're going to be there, and then they're not there. A lot of programs are not able to exist because they don't have the funding or they don't have the backing. And so hopefully, as we move forward with these conversations, that our local government will definitely pour into more of our, our local, our grassroots organizations who are willing to do the work alongside, with law enforcement, 100 Black Men, other, agencies, because one thing that we do bring, or people like me we bring credibility to our young adults, and that's what breaks down the walls, and our kids are able to understand that more. So that's kind of what I do in a whole. Like I actually really get out there with them. My phone is on. They call. I got a young man right now he's talking about committing suicide, and I've been talking to him over the last 2 weeks. Just keeping him calm, going to see him, and having a real live talk conversation. I'm not just a person on the phone just talk good to him. I actually go sit down with these young adults. I sit down sometimes with the parents. I talk with the parents. Even when some of the parents don't want to be dealt with their kids, I still, make it my business, to get out there, and talk to these young adults, and try to empower them and let them know that, that they're worthy of living, they're worthy of being free, they're worthy of having a life and a purpose. And that's part of me just being a life coach and being a mentor, and having the experience of going through the judicial system, because it's not made for us. It's definitely a place that we don't need to be at and shouldn't want to be at. So hopefully I've had my impact here in the CAB and Fulton and Clayton, all the other places I've had the opportunity to work. Not just me, and other organizations doing the work as well.
For DA Mosley, I know that law enforcement agencies in Atlanta met to identify solutions to combat the rise in gang activity in Atlanta and across the state. Can you just talk about some of the things that you and your team is doing to combat gang activity in the city of Atlanta, in addition to some of the things that you just learned from your research?
What we're doing down in Clayton County is just looking at our numbers and honestly just being honest with ourselves. For the longest time, I think we didn't want to have that honest talk with ourselves and say that we had a gang problem. That's the first part of it, is admitting you've got a problem, and then trying to figure out why these children are gravitating to the gangs. What are the gangs offering that we are not? And that's part of the conversation that we're having, and we're realizing it is a monetary thing, which means we've got to provide jobs or job opportunities for the kids. And it's not that our kids are joining Bloods and Crips and what people have known as those large organizations. It might be the Rocky Road gang, and what the kids are doing are breaking into cars. Crime of opportunities, breaking into cars, getting the money or whatever the people are leaving in there. Unfortunately, some of them are getting guns. So we are looking at our stats. We are not lying to ourselves anymore and categorizing what are gangs as gangs, and then talking to the police departments here in Clayton County and saying, okay, now we've got to offer, what are the solutions? And making sure that we're having the conversations with community partners, getting the community partners involved, because they have the resources. We don't. And making sure that we're matching the kids up with the proper resources, that we are helping the families when the family says that they need help, when mama says, I need help with my child, that we're just not doing lip service, that we're actually providing the services that they need. Because a lot of times in juvie, and understand, I was appointed in 2019, the end of 2019, about 5 months before the pandemic jumped off. So my first 5 months, was just trying to figure out what was going on over there in juvenile court. And then all of a sudden the pandemic hit, and it's been just a mess since, because we haven't gotten back in all honesty. But our kids are still committing crimes. And it's a very hard place for a district attorney to be when you're dealing with juveniles, because I have a constitutional obligation to my victims, but I also have a juvenile where I'm looking and it's like, this child needs help, and I've got to help make sure that the juvenile gets help. I've got to make sure that the victim gets what they're entitled to, and doing all of that. And sometimes it's a little hard, but we are trying to find those resources for those children that are gravitating to the gangs. We have to, I think everybody in Metro Atlanta has to admit what the problem is, that we all have gangs. You cannot push it under the rug anymore. And I think for a long time we all were, because it's a horrible word, and we have to properly address those gangs, of those gang members when they come to us. And I mean the violent gang members. I'm not talking about the little ones who are tagging stuff. You can get to them, but the ones that are out there truly committing a true crime of killing, of murdering, burglarizing, we have to deal with those kids when we see them escalating, so that we can stop it before they get to that point. So I hope I answered your question.
Yep. That definitely answered it. Just to add on to that question, this is for Attorney Brown. You've also spent time dealing with cases around gang activity, but you've also spent a lot of time mentoring youth and trying to get to them at a younger age in order to steer them in the right direction. Just talk about some of the ways that you try to tackle that issue as it pertains to our youth joining gangs, and some of the things that you believe that we need to do to kind of steer our kids in the right direction.
Sure. Kind of like what Coach Howard was saying about touches and making sure that we are following up and being consistent with engaging some of these individuals. I don't want to have this be a conversation on things that I've done, but just as an example of some things, a group of us were going, and there was a program we did through the Georgia State Bar. Some attorneys went through a program, and we were initiating a program called the Great Debaters Program. And we went to the DeKalb Regional Youth Detention Center, and every weekday we talked to young males about debate skills. Every Saturday they saw us, they knew we were coming. We got a chance to talk to them and kind of understand the conflict resolution skills that they were using, and just trying to let them know that there's some other ways to resolve conflict, and using the skills that they have and just honing those skills by letting them know that you can resolve your issues with your words, talking things out. And them seeing us, I think helped. I think we were able to make an impact doing it that way. And everyone has said this, and I'm going to reiterate, you know, getting in front of youth before crimes are committed, you know, so yes, I spend a good amount of time, you know, as a gang prosecutor. And what I also try to do, you know, work with the U.S. Attorney's Office. I probably did the same program Mr. Howard did, where we probably DA Mosley did as well, going out to these high schools and talking to these, you know, the kids about gang violence, gang activity, and breaking it down for them, and letting them know how easy it is to get some of these charges, and letting them have access to what we see, letting them have access to, you know, a case file, what we're looking at, and what they can be facing, letting them hear from us, hopefully reaching some of those individuals, and, you know, them asking you questions about you being open, letting these kids ask you questions about, you know, what are, you know, what kind of charges, what kind of time, you know, you could get when you get involved with gang activity, and trying to impress upon them the seriousness of it. Because I'll tell you this one thing. I agree with DA Mosley that we have a gang issue. Our gangs are not the traditional gangs that you see in the West Coast, you know, where you see Bloods and Crips. You see a lot of hybrid gangs. You see a lot of kids who are gravitating from one gang to another gang to another gang, and they're moving around. Gangs are working together. Of course, gangs are not working together, but, you know, we see cases where different gangs are working together to commit, you know, criminal acts. And so, you know, sometimes kids, you know, see themselves as a group, and they don't understand, no, you know, you are operating as a gang, you are part of this gang, and understanding how serious what you are doing affects yourself and affects other victims.
Now, speaking of charges, this is a question for DA Mosley, Attorney Brown, and Judge Jackson as well. House Bill 272 is a very popular bill right now that's been getting a lot of conversation, that can actually change the age limit as it pertains to juveniles being prosecuted as adults. Can you just talk about the way that bill, the impact that bill will have on juveniles or our youth across the Atlanta metro area? And what's your thought process as it pertains to how charges are given out to kids who may be breaking the law?
For me, understand. I came from the SG. I was the SG before I became the DA. So we got a lot of those juveniles at 17 committing what I call little stupid crimes, getting mad, couldn't control their temper, the simper batteries, the affrays at school. That was the stuff that was sent to me, and we would put them in a diversion program. I actually like it. The fact that 272, where the kids at below 18 would now go to juvie, and they would not go to state court for those simple, those affrays, the simple batteries, the first time theft by shoplifting, where they go into the Macy's or somewhere and they're, just taking a pair of jeans because somebody, encouraged them to do so. I like it. I like that. I know I was sitting down there at the Capitol on that day when there was some opposition to it, and I don't know if it passed over, if it passed through and is going to be signed. I'm interested to see, because the opposition was interesting, because I know the Sheriff's Association was against it, because that means there's transporting and they would need more people. I know that for me, I've got a couple of prosecutors over in the juvenile court, but for others, I have other colleagues throughout the state that don't have juvenile prosecutors over there, or only have one. And it goes back to funding, because if it goes up to 18, we're going to see more children over in juvenile court. Cases that were normally in state court are now going to be over in juvenile court. And so there's going to be more cases over there. But I actually like it, because I just think everything else is 18. At 18, that's when your parents can look at you and say, you're an adult. We consider you an adult at 18. Below 18, you're a child. So why is it at 17, I could potentially give somebody a criminal history at 17, but they still can't, go sign a contract or move out of their parents' home, or parents can't kick them out until they're 18. So I'm in favor of it.
Judge Jackson?
I'm in favor of it for a lot of the reasons that District Attorney Mosley stated. First of all, most kids, and we've all been there, are immature, and they don't mature until later, probably in their 20s. And juvenile offenses are civil offenses. Whereas when you're an adult, right now, when you turn 17, if you get in trouble, you got a criminal record. They don't ask you whether or not you've been convicted. If you've been arrested, you have a criminal record that's going to follow you around for the rest of your life. In juvenile court, we try to put in more services to help kids and help people. Whereas once you become an adult, they're more about punishing and incarceration than the services that you can put in juvenile court. Prosecutors, they got to prosecute them whether they're in the superior court or a state court or juvenile court. So that's just moving people. I think it's cheaper to handle kids in the juvenile area than it is as an adult. But that's what they're battling over, the money and making that change on how much it's going to cost. And I think the bill is going to pass, but they are going to delay the implementation on the year so that it won't start until like 2023 or 2022 because of the money. But I think it's a way that we can make a difference in the long run to try to put in services.
And Attorney Brown, any thoughts on that bill?
Sure. I also am a fan of it. Studies have shown for a long time, especially males, brains aren't fully developed until sometimes, there are some studies that say 25. So increasing the age that individuals can be looked at as, as juveniles and our kids is a good thing. We're going up 1 year. Probably wouldn't hurt to go up another year, but it's a great start, and it gives the juvenile courts more jurisdiction over individuals, young males, young women, and let the juvenile court dispose of those cases as opposed to those individuals being treated as adults. In a lot of instances, it used to be if you were 17 years old and you you were 16, you were 17 years old and you were committing an armed robbery, it automatically was you were tried as an adult. Now, period, if you were 17 years old, and now your case while you are 17 years old, if this law passes, which I agree, it looks like it will pass, while you are 17 years old, and if you commit an armed robbery, that is a case that typically will go to Superior Court, but that case now the DA can have some discretion and they can decide to send that case to juvenile court. It's now one of those things where it gives prosecutors a little bit more, prosecutors and judges, gives them a little bit more options for individuals who are 17.
And let me add one other thing. Georgia's in the minority. Most states, you have to be 18. That's when you become adult. I think it's only like less than 5 states now that if you're 17 or younger, you're a juvenile. So Georgia will be moving up to the majority by raising the age limit too.
This next question is for Dr. Pitts. Education is definitely pivotal in the advancement and the success of our youth. Just talk about the role that education plays in preventing kids from becoming entangled in the criminal justice system.
I think education is a vital role in ensuring that our students don't face incarceration or being involved in the justice system. One, we start by listening to our kids, educating our kids, providing staff to student ratios that are not so high with our kids so that we can do those mentoring programs that we talked about tonight. Provide more opportunities for college and career preparations. Preparing our kids for the workforce, getting them involved in what careers that they want to be involved with, finding out what excites our kids, what do they want to do, listening to our kids, providing opportunities to say goodbye to a zero tolerance attitude by bringing in things like PBIS, positive behavior intervention and supports for our kids, allowing them to have an active role in their education and an active role in making better choices, modeling better choices for our kids. Also, by building relationships with our kids, again, with that social emotional learning, not just going to the counselor when it's time to take an SAT test or when it's time to see what you want to do for the rest of your life, which is a very hard decision, but by having those social emotional conversations with our kids every single day, finding out what's going on with them before they're even involved, and by all means, making the police our last resort. We're here to educate kids and to make kids feel safe, but we also have to listen to our children, give them the opportunity to be heard, give them the opportunity to have some say-so in how they're being educated. One of the big reasons sometimes why kids go to gangs or do things that are not positive in our community is they want to feel accepted and they want to feel needed and they want to be heard. So as a school administrator, a former teacher, I understand and I know the importance of everything we do while we have them in our school is the best, but also educating our parents. So also, I think with our schools, we have schools and community now where we're reaching out to not only assist our kids, but we're also assisting our parents and people who didn't know they were going to be parents, assisting them as well. So again, all those wraparound services, but also creating opportunities for people to come inside of our schools and talk to our students, allowing them to have the opportunity to invest, or you invest in them. So I think those are some wonderful things that we can do as far as education.
Now, the learning environment also plays an important role in the education of our youth. And there's a Senate bill now that's on the board that's focused on testing drinking water for lead. Just talk about the importance of the impact of that bill in particular, and just the importance of creating an environment for students to be able to get an education in a comfortable environment.
Right now, we are somewhat building social justice classrooms. We are constantly talking to our students about making good decisions. What do good decisions look like in our schools? What does good decisions look like in your community? We are educating our kids on all things social. So I think right now, as far as we can build positive climates for our kids inside of our classrooms, I think we're on the right track with doing that right this second.
This is a question for Chief Ramos. You spent time in Miami prior to moving to DeKalb County, and you've kind of made it your mission to kind of break those stigmas that have been previously associated with police departments, specifically as it pertains to the Black community. What do you think needs to be done to break those stigmas for good? And what are some of the things that you're hearing on the ground from parents as it pertains to things that they want to see from their police department?
Well, what we're hearing is they really want to be able to engage with law enforcement and not at a time of need. They want to be able to engage with you when they don't need you. So that's how you build that trust. You want to be able to interact with the youth and their parents at a time when there is no trouble, because that's when people's ears are really open. When you're there because there's trouble, sometimes that's a little too late. People are not as open-minded. So we're definitely trying to bridge that gap with communication. We're working on having a youth academy this summer, where we're going to bring the youth in and teach them about law enforcement, give them that opportunity to interact with them, learn about why we do what we do, and kind of guide them along if they have any questions. So that's something that we're working on, as I said, along with the life skills unit. I'm just trying to create some type of mentoring, some type of interaction with us where we are seen as humans and we can see them as humans as well. Because sometimes when you're responding to a cause for service, you're dealing with a victim and a subject, and sometimes that's not the time to be able to interact and have conversation. So what we want to do is engage in dialogue. Dialogue is key.
And Coach Howard, being that you are on the front lines actually talking to this youth, talking to the youth, what are some things that you're hearing from the youth as it pertains to things that they want to see or things that their parents want to see?
I think a lot of kids, I think one of the things I heard earlier was some kids want to be heard, and not necessarily from the community. They want to be heard from their parents. And one of the problems, but like I say, go back to one of the problems that I hear or that I recognize is that parents are under so much pressure with trying to maintain a household, rent and light bills and cars, and having to get the job, having to work 2 jobs, and so they're not having enough time, to really interact with their youth. But I will say this, because I have to stay real in everything I do. I've asked kids in conversation, like, what's up? And I remember this kid told me, I said, what's up with you and your mom? How you and your mom relationship? He said, I don't know. She's always in the room on the bed on her phone. And I said, oh, okay. So I want to always encourage adults and parents to make sure that you interact with your kids. And I went through that same phase with my mom, even when we didn't have cell phones. And I had to have that conversation with mom as an adult, like, you know, not being able to interact with me when I was a younger man and didn't have any guidance. And I do understand a lot of people, you know, once they work all day, you know, they try to have a personal time. And that's that time of detoxing, but they'll realize what happens is, and what I've heard from kids is that as a detachment, the kids are not attached to their families. There's a big gap between, you know, our youth and community. There's a big gap between youth and the older adults. And so they feel like they're out here just by themselves. A lot of our kids, not all of them, but a lot of them. And so that's the reason why a lot of times, you know, they gravitate to street life or street activities, you know, jobs. But it's amazing to me, right? When I'm actually talking to kids, when they ask me a question, like, and even in phone calls like this or on Zooms or on conferences, you know, when I ask you, you know, what is that you're trying to accomplish, anything like that, or when they're at job, what is it they do, you know, but why, and then why a lot of them, you know, lose job stuff, because one thing I've learned, we're not really building leaders no more. You know, kids are being raised, but we're not actually building leaders, and we're not teaching our kids how to function in jobs at job sites. I'm seeing so much breakdown in so many different areas that to me make our job hard. You know, the leadership roles at certain jobs, you know, you have to teach these young adults how to be leaders, how to interact, how to communicate, how to turn off, because, you know, I can be street, but I also know how to get in front of, you know, and be professional, and you know, and our kids have to be taught these things. And so and then, like I said, some of my kids lack education because, you know, regardless of what the school teaches, us as adults and us as grandparents, we have to reinforce what the school taught. You know, education to me doesn't start in kindergarten or first grade. Education starts at home. I mean, that's, you know, that's my opinion about it. It doesn't start at school, and whatever's taught at school, we had to make sure we reinforce what's being taught at school, and help our kids to understand how to interact out here in the community. And that's what I've heard from my kids. You know, just the detachment from family members, from, you know, life, and they just feel like they're out here alone fighting. You know, just so many things, and it's just amazing to me over the times that I've done this. I've never seen in my lifetime. Well, I know I'm old or whatever, but so many parents that have just, you know, kids are 13, 14, and the things that their kids are doing, and parents are just like exhausted to the point they just want to give up, you know. And so kids see that, and they're already going through so many other things dealing, because people don't, we can talk about the gangs, we can talk, but people don't really understand unless you've lived that street, like the pressure that's in those streets, the pressure to do certain things. And when our kids doesn't have anyone to talk to, or someone they can look up to, or have peers that would encourage them to go the other way, it becomes so much more easy for them to make these bad decisions because of the pressure and because of the things that's going on there. So these are the things that I hear when I talk to these kids. It's just so much, it's just such a big gap with the parents. It's a big gap with the community. It's a big gap with everything. And a lot of them just feel like they're out here fighting by themselves. Unfortunate situation.
This is a question for all of our panelists. In Atlanta, a big ongoing topic right now is the water boys, the kids who are out on the street corners selling water. I'd love to get everyone's opinion on how we as a community fix that issue in order to lead those kids in a better direction, or get them off the street into a safer environment where they're empowered to do more, whether it be workshops or mentoring programs. I would love to just get everyone's opinion on that ongoing issue and topic in Atlanta. That's not a big one.
Is that for anybody?
Yeah.
Okay. I want to say real quickly, I was actually going to collaborate with a group of young brothers off I Am Father First in Atlanta. They was actually going to start, and I think they are doing a little bit in Atlanta, where they was trying to help pull some of these kids from the corner and teach them entrepreneurship. And I was actually going to do, I wanted to do that part in DeKalb County, and they was going to do like a pop-up entrepreneurship, and I'm still considering that. I know I would have to probably talk with, Chief and some other people to make sure I get the okay to do certain things. And I'm pretty sure, collaboratively, we can do something. Honestly, I would rather see kids selling water than out here robbing and selling drugs. And that's why, I give them money. Like I will, and I tell them all the time, young man, keep doing great. I try to empower, even though I didn't really know a lot of it was that it was against the law to do it. But I would rather see them selling water than out here breaking the cars, robbing. We just have to figure out a way to get them together, teach them entrepreneurship, teach them how to build, to maybe start an LLC, create a platform for themselves. We just got to figure out a way to come together as a community to get these young men, in a better place so they can understand how to save money, how to build a network, how to work together. Because I think in Atlanta they had a situation where a young boy they got in a dispute over $5 or $10 and one of them shot each other. So we got to show them how to build a network amongst themselves and build an empire. Like I said, I didn't even know it was illegal, but me personally, I just would rather see them selling water than robbing and selling drugs and having gang robbers. But hopefully we can find something collaborative together so we can teach them some entrepreneurship and empower them to become great and become leaders in our community.
What we're doing also, we're working along with the county. So we realize it's not really just a police problem. We're not going to be able to solve that problem. So we actually been working with DeKalb County WorkSource, and I want to get that right, and their human services. And what they're doing is they're offering entrepreneurship workshops. And they're paying the youth to do this. The problem is the age is between, I believe, 16 and 24. And if you participate in this program, they give you a stipend while you're in the program, and they want to teach you skills. They want to get you employment, and they want to give you mentorship throughout this period, in addition to paying you weekly. But some of our water boys are younger than 16, and that's where the problem lies. And law enforcement, sometimes our officers feel bad for them as well. We don't want to take them to jail. We don't want to get them into the system trying to earn a living. So that's where we're actually talking to the families and trying to get the families cooperation and keeping the kids off the street and giving them other sources. That's how we were able to get the young boy into the life skill program. But some of them don't want to, and it's difficult. Sometimes the family doesn't cooperate. But we're trying to do that by giving them alternatives. And one of our alternatives is the life skills that we do internally. And the other one is this program that the county is working with other partners to try to get them off the streets and kind of work on those skills. You want to be an entrepreneur? This is how you do it. These are the skills. They teach them about licenses and internships. But like I said, a lot of the youth don't want to participate, and they have to do that by volunteering. We can't force them to do that.
Chief Ramos, can you tell our audience how families can contact you or your team or get involved in that program?
Okay, so I have the information here, and I can scan it to someone afterwards as well, but I have two phone numbers. Okay. And one phone number is 404-687-3806, and another number is 404-687-3402. And there's also two emails, and that is going to be the WorkSource DeKalb, and it's a youth program, and it says it provides year-round workforce training and education for people 16 to 24. But they also have that specialty program, which is really focusing or trying to focus on the water boys so that they can go ahead and take that spirit of wanting to be in business and learning how to really make it a professional, legitimate. And like I said, they get paid while they're doing it. So we don't want to just take you off the street and not give you anything. They want to work with them, give them the skills, and pay them while they're teaching them.
I love that. I love that.
Can I speak on that for a minute?
Yep, I was actually going to go to you next.
Remember I talked about short-term and long-term?
Mhm.
One of the problems with the water boards, these kids want to go and get jobs. They need to go to school. Because if they're out selling water, they're just going to get so much money, but they're not going to school. And that's where the long-term problem comes in. I'm sure the DA and the solicitor and the police chief and even Coach Howard would agree that most people that wind up in jail, they don't have a high school diploma. And when the problem is, when you got kids in elementary school getting out of school and they can't read, it's a proven thing. If you can't read at a 5th grade level, you're not going to finish high school. And if you're not going to finish high school, you can't get any type of job. So we need to be active and try to have the PAL units and get these kids active, but we also need to encourage them to stay in school and put in the services with their family to help them stay in school. Because that's one of the problems.
DA Mosley, Dr. Pitts, and Attorney Brown, do you have any insight or thoughts on that?
I completely agree with Judge Phillips. And Dr. Pitts will tell you every year, my office, even when I was Solicitor General, that was one of our main pushes, beginning back to school. It was like, to the Clayton County school system, what is it that you need? And we would give tens of thousands of dollars in school supplies. This past year, the pandemic threw us for a loop, and we had to change from school supplies to virtual to get headsets and earbuds. But we're always out there encouraging the kids, going to the schools, encourage them to stay in school, to get that basic education, because the judge is absolutely correct. Most of the people that we encounter in court, when you ask about their grade level, they have dropped out. They have not completed high school. We try to encourage them through probation, go get their GED. When we put them in pretrial diversion, try to help them set up to go get their GED, trying to further the education. I tell the kids all the time that college might not be for everybody, but there are technical schools. The one thing that people are going to need here in the South is a heating and air conditioning man, especially air conditioning during the summer months. You cannot survive here in the state of Georgia without a good working air conditioning. So you will pay an HVAC person hundreds of dollars when your air conditioning conks out to come put some Freon in there or whatever it takes so that your house is not 115 degrees and you can survive in there. We all drive cars. I can't change the oil in the oil filter in my car to save my life, but I will pay somebody $65 to do it. The same with the tires. And so I encourage them, you don't have to go to a 4-year college, but you can go get to a technical school. If you like messing with computers, you don't have to go to college. You can go get the certificates and come out getting certified, whatever they call it, and making $65,000, $75,000 programming or fixing these computers. So we are out there when we were able to before COVID-19, out there in the schools, elementary, middle, high school, encouraging them to stay in school, to get that education and not go for the quick money. We try partnering with the school system. Whenever the school says we come. And we do the best that we can do. And sometimes it's just pulling the kids aside and doing that one-on-one, like Coach talked about, saying, hey, man, there are other options. But we just, in my opinion, in my county, we have to have more wraparound services. We need those true, legitimate community partners that's in it for the kids and not in it for me to give them numbers so that they can get more federal funding, in all honesty.
I concur with District Attorney Mosley, and she has been a true champion for the schools here in Clayton County, always giving back, always showing up to our schools. And we continue to advocate to our parents that one of the biggest things that you can do for your children is to come to the schools, show up at the schools, go to the open houses, volunteer when you can. Sometimes you can't volunteer, but just send emails. Teachers are always available. Administrators are always available. But as I alluded to earlier in talking about having kids understand that they need to be college and career ready, we ask our kids, even as far back as elementary school, preparing them for high school and the workforce. We try to tap into what their interests are. We have a vast amount of career technical courses in our high schools for our kids. Just like she was talking about the air conditioning, we have engineering, we have healthcare science, we have work-based learning for our kids if they want to take advantage, and we can assist them in getting jobs, entrepreneurship programs where we reach out to community leaders and we ask if we can have our kids do an entrepreneurship in their business. We have law and justice programs where we work with our kids, talk to them about the criminal justice program. I alluded to PBIS earlier. In our school, we have teen court where we do other things besides just suspensions out of school. We give kids choices. I'm always going to advocate for a child to finish high school and to further their career choices in anything that they endeavor. But it is going to take a village. It's going to take a community. The schools are trying to be very inviting. It's been a little difficult in the pandemic, but we do know that sometimes people are hooked to their phones. So we have started to tap into Zoom phone calls, Zoom parent meetings, Zoom virtual houses. So anything we can do on the school level to promote getting your high school diploma, we're advocating every single day. We're out there day and night to assist our parents. The conversation earlier was sometimes parents have a hard time assisting their child with school because maybe they have had a hard time or had a hard time in school. And of course, a lot of our parents are having to take on extra jobs to make ends meet. And we're not going to make anyone feel bad about that. But we have services like tutor.com to assist our kids, to also assist our parents, USA Test Prep. We have a wealth of information to assist our kids in making sure that they finish and get a high school diploma, because we want to make sure that we're sending kids out literate, ready to face the world, ready to take on the things that they're interested in and be contributing members to society.
I love that. I love that. I love that. And I have one final question for all of our panelists. This has been an incredible discussion tonight that's identified the issues in addition to providing solutions as well. And I want to transition to next steps. This is a question for all of our panelists that participated tonight. What is your call to action for parents and kids who may be viewing tonight's virtual discussion? I can start with DA Mosley.
I think for me, it is stay strong. Stay strong, stay positive, stay in school, and stay on the straight and narrow. It's okay, as somebody stated earlier, the coach stated earlier, it's okay to be a nerd. It's okay to be a nerd and be square and get through, because every day I think you think that it's hard and it's not going to change. But each day when you go, it's a new day. It's a new day, and you can make it better and you can survive. We have the skills to survive. Just get that education, because with that education, the world opens up to you, but you need that basic education. So stay positive, stay in school, and listen to your parents. It's okay to be a nerd, and you don't have to have everything that everybody else has.
I would like to say that you're not alone. I know sometimes it feels like you're alone, whether you're a parent or a child, but you're not. And when no one is expected to do it alone. So if you need help, I would say ask. I think that's the biggest fault that we all as humans have, is that we don't ask for help. So if it's not your parents, it could be a friend, it could be a school, it could be law enforcement, but never feel like you're alone, because you're not. And like I said, I just don't want anybody to ever feel alone. And if you get to the point where you think you are, you can always pick up the phone. You can call police, even though you may feel that that's not the resource for you. We do have people that will talk with you, but it doesn't have to be us. It could be any agency, any person. We all need an ear at some point. And I just want it to be not us against you, but us together. It takes us all to make a difference that we need to see in this community.
We need to care. We need to do away with apathy. It's like they said before, it takes a village. And as long as we got hope, and that's important, and we need to educate that, we need to explain that, we need to reach out to the children and everybody else to give them hope and to let them know what's important. Apathy is one of the worst things, and losing hope is one of the worst things. So we just need to communicate. The education is very important. And the problem is we just need to communicate, and as the coach and everybody else said, talk to them and try to be examples as opposed to isolating, because we're all in this together and we can go further together.
I want to say this, if any kids are on here, value your life. Value yourself as an individual and know that you deserve to have a great life. I'm saying this from experience of going to prison 15 years and watching so much craziness that goes on in prison. Prison is not cool. I regret the life that I lived as a young man and not staying one. And I always tell anybody this, any school I've went to, in the college, or any church, one of the worst decisions I ever made, young people, is that when I dropped out of school. I always tell people, I wish I'd have stayed in school, because I had dreams of going to college. I had dreams of being successful and doing something with my life. That's something I promised my grandmother that I wasn't able to fulfill. And when I found myself in an institution inside of a prison cell, I realized then that, that I want to be more than what I allowed myself to be. So I want to share that with every young person. Value your life, value your freedom, respect your parents, love your parents, love those who care about you. And if they don't have your best interests at heart, you need to distance yourself away from anybody that doesn't have your best interests at heart. Parents, I want to encourage you to don't give up. Don't give up. Kids always hate when I say this, and stay in your kids' business, right? Stay in your kids' business. And hopefully collectively together, we all can make, help out with, I think Chief said it. If you need help, reach out. My number, I don't mind talking with your kid. If you need somebody, that you feel that if I can help, you can call me at 404-480-3235. 404-480-3235. I'm always willing to help where I can. So I just want to share that. Kids value your life. Parents, stay in your kids' business. And we'll make it through together.
I would like to say that educators got into this business because we want to educate children so that we do have a literate society. I want to say, stay the course. Please get your high school diploma so that the sky is the limit and not the limit the sky. I also want to encourage parents to participate in your school's school councils, your school's PTAs, PTOs. If you can't do that, reach out to your teachers. Right now, you can go on Infinite Campus. You can see what your child is doing. This is the time to hold on to your children educationally. Sometimes you can't always be there, but We are an email away. Sometimes if you can't get us on the phone, I'm up late at night. Most educators are. We are quick to answer emails, but stay involved as much as you can. Don't be afraid to ask for assistance. That's why educators are here. We love to assist you. We want to help you. Make sure that you are in touch with your child's counselor, and always check your school's website. The websites hold vast information. We have community resources located on our websites. We talk to you about schedules. We talk to you about vast resources educationally. So always visit your child's and school's website. Again, we care. We love you. If you ever need us, reach out to your school leadership.
I love that. I love that. I love that. I like
There is one other thing I want to say.
Okay.
We need to do away with the stigma of mental health. We think that people Black people don't get mentally ill. They do. We do. And one of the problems that we have in society is that they talk about needing help. We need to do away with that stigma. If you need medication, you need to take it. So that's one point I really want to stress that I forgot to mention. But I don't know how everybody else feels, but that's what I see in the system, is that a lot of people have mental health issues, and either they want to address it or they want to ignore it. The parents don't want to admit that the kids have problems, and sometimes the parents have problems.
Well, I'd like to thank everyone for participating in tonight's discussion. It was very powerful, very insightful. I love the fact that it addressed different verticals and different elements of the criminal justice system, in addition to some of the issues that we're facing. And I really have to thank you once again for taking time out of your busy schedules to participate in this conversation tonight, because it means a lot. Not only to us as an organization, but to our communities as well. So thank you again. Before we jump off, I want to pass it over to our president, Brother Rafiq Ahmad, who's going to share some closing remarks before we depart.
Good evening, and I'll try to be very brief. First, I want to echo Brother Will Ayers' sentiments in thanking all of you for your time, as well as the words of wisdom that you guys have actually brought to us tonight. Judge Jackson talked about mental health. Ironically, that will be our next forum. We'll deal with mental health, and so we can't thank you guys enough for coming on and sharing with us. As I shared with the panelists back behind the scenes before we started, if you're a panelist or you're involved in this discussion, if you're on Facebook, you're involved in this discussion or any other platform that we're streaming on, I want you guys to look, to your left and look to your right, and realize that, as I said before, you are the army that you're waiting for. We are the cavalry, so we are the ones who are going to change kind of where we see ourselves now and where we want to go. So some of you, are on, many of you know I wear multiple hats, so I also serve as the same role in Noble National Organization of Black Law Enforcement Executives. So Judge Jackson, Chief Ramos, DA Mosley, and Assistant Solicitor General Brown are all on that law enforcement side, and then Dr. Pitts and Coach Howard, are definitely partners on the 100 side. But a couple of things that I noticed that you guys said, that encapsulate everything that we believe as far as both these great organizations. But I heard Dr. Pitts, I heard Coach Howard talk about how one of our models in the 100 is what they see is what they'll be. And so the more we emulate positive behaviors, the more we show love, to these young folks, then hopefully they will emulate that in their lives, and they'll do the same. And I noticed that all my law enforcement partners talk about justice by action. So you guys are actually in the criminal justice system and making a difference by things that you're doing, in your jobs proactively to make sure you can make a change and make a difference. So I want to make sure that we have this wonderful group together. I want to make sure that we don't lose traction. So I thought of 3 words when you guys were talking and I was listening to you guys: synergy, energy, and action. So we have the synergy of this group, the energy of this group, and so now we need to collectively make sure we're moving forward with some type of action. And one of those things we can do is not get fragmented and try to do our own things in our own silos, but to realize the power of us coming together, and doing things as partners and leveraging our partnership and moving this big train forward. And one of the things that's going to actually help us through this era that we're in right now is we have to be willing to compete for our young people. So right now, everything else is competing for their attention and winning, whether it's social media, whether it's drug dealers, whether it's gangs, they're competing and they're winning. So all of us have probably been competitive at some points in our lives, whether it's sports or in the job, but we have to make sure that we are willing to compete for these young people's lives and their souls, and that we're going to make sure that we don't give up. Because throughout the night, you've seen Coach Howard with his grandbaby sitting on his lap. So he's not doing this, for him. He's doing this to make sure that that grandchild has a better pathway than what he saw. And so all of us are doing this, for our young folks, so that we can make a better life and a better society, for them. And I thought about an analogy because we have to make sure that we're learning these young folks' language so we can talk to them and communicate with them properly. So many of us have traveled, to foreign countries, or you may be traveling to a foreign country and you don't know the language. You run into somebody on the street, you're trying to get to some famous monument, you're trying to get to some place. You don't, speak their language, they don't speak English. You guys both get frustrated, and the first thing you have a tendency to do is to talk louder. There's nothing wrong with the person's hearing. It's a matter of finding the language, that is common to both of you guys, whether that's drawing a picture, pointing, and whatever that is that brings that common language together so that you can communicate properly. So the goal is not to amplify, it's to simplify. So we have to simplify our message to these young folks, and we have to make sure that we're talking to them and not at them, and that we're telling them that we love them, that we're showing them that we love them. I love the idea of the social emotional learning. One of the things that I've learned in doing this and being in law enforcement for 30 some years and mentoring for that, for 20 some of those years, is that a lot of what we see in our young people has to do with them not addressing pain and not realizing that they're in pain. So that social emotional learning will hopefully help them to address that underlying pain, and so that they won't express that in anger. So we have a lot of work to do, but we have a lot of soldiers who can actually do that work. So I would encourage us to make this the start, of leveraging each other's abilities, knowledge, and skills, and working together and moving together to make our community in the metro area the best that it can be. And right here is where we have the tools to be able to do that. So thank you all again for your willingness to come and share. Even though all of you no doubt have worked a long day, but you still spent extra hours, doing this. So great thanks to you guys for doing this. I'd like to thank our sponsors, IKEA, Coca-Cola, the Morehouse School of Medicine. And we'd like to thank all of you guys for who are tuning into this, because this is where it starts, but this isn't where it ends. So let's go ahead and keep plowing forward and making sure that we're making a difference in our community, no matter how hard that journey is. But we're going to stick in here, we're going to try, and we're going to make something happen. So thank you all.